This is Jason Anderson, Chairman of the Killingly Town Council, and we are calling this meeting to order. At this time, we are actually going to open up the public hearing on items 14A and B. And it is currently 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September 13th. Ms. Gloria, would you like to go over those two items before we...
Sure. So these are two ordinance revisions. The first ordinance revision is to Chapter 13, and it is to include a prohibition for the public consumption of cannabis on public property, on any of the public property, and it is very similar to the current prohibition that we have to the consumption of alcoholic beverages on any public properties. The other one is an amendment to Chapter 3 on the ordinances, updating the section of the sale of alcoholic beverages. It's really striking that language, which then allows it to mirror the state statutes that are in place right now, which allows for sale of alcoholic beverages on Sunday, which have been taking place for quite some time. So that's really just updating to current statutes by striking that language. So those are the two items. We did receive two written comments for that section of the public comment. The first one is from Randy Duquette, 26 King Street in Danielson, and he is in support, and he is writing on behalf as the president of the Little League Association. He is in support of the change to the public consumption ordinance. They've been having some challenges down at the Little League field that he outlines in his. The other one that we received was from Kelsey Hurst from United Services. She is the coalition coordinator for Killingly's Youth Substance Prevention Coalition, and she also wrote in support of the proposed ordinance amendment for Chapter 13. Those were the two that we received for the public hearing.
Thank you. At this time, we will open up the podium for anyone who would like to speak on these two items, being 14A, 14B. We just ask when you come up to the podium, state your name and address. And we will keep this open for at least 5 minutes. That way, if there's anybody walking in last minute, it gives them a minute to get here for this. Again, anyone who would like to speak to either of these, now would be the time to do it. Last call for comment during the public hearing. Seeing no more comments, we will close the public hearing and move on to the regular town council meeting. So we are calling the regular town council meeting to order. We'll move on to number 2, prayer. Mr. Wood.
Heavenly Father, again, we seek your wisdom and your discernment on the things that we should and should not do, and that we would ultimately honor you and those who have put us in this position. We pray all this in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance. Moving on the agenda, next item up is item 5, adoption of minutes of previous meetings. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes from special town council meeting August 2nd, 2022, and regular town council meeting August 9th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Ms. George. Discussion, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Grandelski abstains. So, motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up, item 6A is a proclamation recognizing September 2022 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. This proclamation recognizing the month of September 2022 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, the week of September 4th, 2022 is National Suicide Prevention Week, and it is intended to promote awareness of suicide prevention resources available to our community. The goal is to learn how to help those around us, how to talk about suicide without increasing the risk of harm. Sorry. If you or someone you know is in an emergency, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK or call 911 immediately. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and according to the CDC, each year more than 48,000 people die by suicide, with an average of 132 suicides daily. And whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death for people 10 to 34 years of age, the fourth leading cause for people 35 to 54 years of age, and the eighth leading cause among people 55 to 64 years of age. And whereas each and every suicide directly impacts a minimum of 100 additional people, including family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and community members. Whereas the benefits of preventing and overcoming mental health challenges, suicide attempts and loss, and substance abuse are significant and valuable to individuals, families, and our community at large. It is essential that we educate our community about suicide, mental health, and substance abuse problems and the ways they affect all people in the community. Whereas we encourage all residents to take the time to inquire about the well-being of their family, friends, and neighbors regularly, and to genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate. A simple phone call, message, handshake, or hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Killenly Town Council does hereby declare the month of September 2022 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killingly, Connecticut, this 13th day of September 2022. We'll now move on to item 6B, proclamation recognizing the month of September 2022 as National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month. Whereas September 2022 is National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, and during the past 4 decades, obesity rates have soared in children and teens from 19% pre-pandemic to 22%, an increase that hasn't been experienced since CDC started tracking pediatric obesity in 1999. And whereas 31.8%, or 23 million children and teenagers aged 2 to 19 are obese or overweight, a statistic that health and medical experts consider an epidemic, and significant disparities exist among the obesity rates of children based on ethnicity and income status. And whereas childhood obesity poses a financial threat to our economy and healthcare system, carrying up to $14 billion per year in direct healthcare costs, with people in the United States spending about 9% of their total medical costs on obesity-related illnesses. And whereas childhood and adolescent obesity have lasting negative social and mental health effects and pose academic challenges that could follow them into adulthood, educating children and teens to participate in physical activity, having proper nutrition, reducing screen time, and having proper sleep will not only benefit body weight, but also blood pressure and bone strength, preventing chronic diseases. If current trend does not change, 1 in 3 children and nearly 1 in 2 minority children born in the year 2000 will develop type 2 diabetes at some point in their lifetime. And whereas many efforts are being made by public, community-based, and private sector organizations and individuals to decrease childhood obesity in the United States by publishing educational materials, media campaigns, websites, policies, healthier food options, and greater opportunities for physical activity. And whereas the town of Killingly is proud of our parks and recreational facilities and programs and their contribution to building healthy, active lifestyles, to recreate, play, build self-esteem and confidence, which improves the quality of life in our community. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Killingly Town Council does hereby declare the month of September as National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, and encourage our citizens to act by learning about and engaging in activities that promote healthy eating and seeking greater physical activity that assist our community's children in being healthier. Killingly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killingly, Connecticut, this 13th day of September 2022. I would also like to add for all of us who are bald that today is actually National Bald is Beautiful Day. Moving on in the agenda. Moving on the agenda, item 7, unfinished business for town meeting action. We have none, so we'll move on to item 8, citizen statements and petitions. Ms. Gloria, did we have any comments submitted for the council meeting?
Yes, we received 2 that were submitted for public comment. The first was submitted by Pamela Shaw, president of East Killingly Fire District, and she submitted public comment in support of the ARP application for the fire departments, the Lucas and the communication submission. And then the second one, which was submitted later, I actually placed it at your locations. It will be put onto the website tomorrow because it was submitted past 2 p.m. Matt DeRozier, the chief of Attawagan, submitted a public comment also in support of the ARPA application for the fire departments for the Lucas tools and the communication devices.
Thank you. If there is anyone here who would like to make public comment, please step up to the podium and state your name and address.
Charlie Hutchins, East Franklin Street, Danielson. I don't know how the resolution concerning childhood obesity came here tonight, but as a citizen who supports the restoration of whole milk to the school lunch program, I say thank you. There is a lot of information concerning childhood obesity in the 97milk.com column. I hope more people will read it, act on it, and say they did. The kids need you, the citizens. It doesn't matter what your job is or what your political office is. It's us. A little extra word, my speech is lousy. I hope more people will read it, act on it, and say they did. I believe that it is every citizen's responsibility to restore whole milk in school lunch programs, but also as citizens to speak for our responsibility and obligation to support our freedom as well as that of our kids. Thanks for that. I'd like to make a comment on an unrelated subject. The solid waste contract renewal must be getting close. I read that the garbage burner in the Hartford area will close permanently. I think there are only 2 in Connecticut. Therefore, the Northeastern Council of Governments are faced with telling the state of Connecticut to build another one, or for NECOG to explore the possibility of shipping garbage by railroad to out-of-state locations. Also, I have always been skeptical of single-stream recycling. A purer product is more valuable to remanufacturing companies. Also, an anaerobic digester does exist and operate in northeastern Connecticut to process unusable food waste. Thanks. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make public comment? Last call for public comment.
Okay, I forgot a sentence. Can I go again?
It's not bashful.
I think the people from the 4-H are here tonight. You know what? 4-H is agriculture. I hope this town council will do them the honor of granting them the money they need to fix the dam up in Abington. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Heather Logi. This is on. Is it on? I can't
Yep.
tell if it's on. Okay. I couldn't tell if it was on. Heather Logi, I'm the camp director from the 4-H camp. Just wanted to give an update. We just finished our 2022 camp season. Had a great season. We had 128 kids from Killingly come to camp, with 36 of those receiving camperships in order to come and be able to come to camp. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update on that. Thank you for your continued support, and hopefully in October we'll having some great news from the council. So just thank you for continuing to keep our project at the forefront, and we're looking forward to October's meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to make public comment? Now is the time to do so. Seeing no further public comment, we will close this portion of the meeting and move on. Next item up on the agenda is council and staff comments. Any comments from council?
As you were reading the childhood obesity, I can honestly tell you, having spent a number of years and my children having attended the 4-H camp as well, those kids are not sitting in front of screens. To get to any place in camp, you just automatically book in 10-15 minutes because it's going to take you that long to walk to get there. And so they're definitely active, and they go from like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day. So they're busy, they're moving. So I look forward to October and our ability to potentially help them keep that camp going.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to Heather for the update on letting us know how many Killingly residents actually were able to attend the camp and how many scholarships you awarded to those from Killenly as well. Any more comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item up on the agenda is 10A, appointments to boards and commissions. Mr. Mullen was seeking appointment to the Conservation Commission. There are currently one regular member, two alternate member vacancies available. Can I get a motion to appoint Mr. Mullen to the regular term that runs for 5 years, and it would run from March 1st, 2020 through February 28th, 2025?
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Ms. Barclay. I will open up for discussion.
He's attended a few commission meetings already, so he's, they got him in. He's got his feet wet a little bit, so I think it will work. It'll be a good match.
Thank you. When he interviewed, he did seem enthusiastic and really wanted to serve. And I always thank anyone who comes forward to serve on boards and commissions. You're volunteering your time to help our community. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We have Mr. Wood abstained. Thank you. And we will move on in the agenda. So the motion passes. We will move on in the agenda. Next item up is reports from liaisons, and we do not have a Board of Ed liaison. And Ms. Wakefield, did you want to go over the borough liaison?
We actually have the summer off,
Okay.
so we don't meet in July and August. We will be meeting this month, and this Saturday we have a strategic planning training thing starting. We're going to do a one-day training, so that's this Saturday, so we'll be up and running, so I'll definitely have a report for next month.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, next item up is 12A, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget reports. Can I get a motion to accept the summary report on general fund appropriations for town government?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to item 12B, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget reports. Can I get a motion to?
You're not going to need to, there is
One
none.
on the agenda.
It's still over the summer, so it's just a standing place,
All right.
so there is none yet.
So we'll move on to item 13, correspondence communications reports. 13A is the town manager's report. Ms. Gloria, if you could go over this, please.
Sure. So I just gave you initially the update on the drought. So we are currently, as of last posting, we are at a stage 1 right now. Although if you look out, kind of zoom out on that drought map, we're completely surrounded by stage 2 all the way around us, and that's kind of almost haloed by stage 3. So it's not going to take a lot for us to zoom back down into stage 2 drought. So we're continuing with the same recommendations of reducing, that outdoor automatic watering, use of outdoor water, try and, postpone or minimize any extensive landscaping, planting, or, lawns that you're planning on planting or vegetation. Fix any of those leaky plumbing fixtures, that type of stuff. So, just be diligent with your water use. So while we've had some really significant rainstorms, some of the rain that we've gotten was so significant, it was straight watershed. It didn't absorb because we just received so much of it all at once. It just was straight watershed. So the rain that we've gotten over the last 2 days was great rain because it's the absorbing rain that we really, really need to see. So I've been monitoring those drought conditions, not necessarily just Windham County, but more regionally, more on the whole northeast region area to kind of see where that is, because the drought conditions really have been driving for us mostly on the eastern side and crossing from the Rhode Island side. So I've been really kind of monitoring how Rhode Island is faring on the drought conditions as well. And we've been seeing really sporadic rain, really pocketed rain. So while one area experiences rain literally one street over, it's dry as a bone. So I'm hopeful that we're going to start to see some more regular rainfall going into the fall before we really get into winter months where we start running into just icing conditions. But that means that, coming into the spring, we're not done looking at drought conditions over the winter. We continue to monitor that, because going into the spring, we can still go into the spring in a drought. And we want to be mindful of what that ground condition looks like when we go into the spring. So that's our update on drought. Connecticut, and I included the next topic, I included the PowerPoint that we received on this new program. So Connecticut DOT has introduced a new bridge funding program. It really mirrors the federal, the former federal local bridge program, which was an 80-20 grant program, 80% federal, 20% local town matching grant funding. I will say that federal program has been in the past a very arduous program to get through. Typical project takes about 7 years from the time that you start the application process until you actually get a bridge completed. And typically the cost on it is close to double, sometimes more than double, once you get through all of the added components that come through with the federal requirements of the grant, right? So while it is a 20% municipal requirement, it's a higher threat, it's a higher cost value on the project. This new program is federal 80%, 20% state. So there's no town money involved whatsoever. The state takes over the whole project. They're claiming that they will cut down the total amount of time it is going to take to do the project. So their claim. That's fine. There are requirements around what bridges will actually qualify for this program. There has to be a certain amount of, there are collector roads that are requirements to meet. They have to be greater than 20 feet spans. So we went through our entire bridge inventory that would meet the qualifications of this program. So there's 7 of them here, and we have submitted grant applications for all of them. And we're hoping to see at least some of these stick, especially, ones like Cotton Bridge Road. That one is actually bridges 2 towns. It goes between Killingly and Pomfret. That would be a great one for this program to take, because then we don't have to deal with how much is Pomfret's share, how much is Killingly share, all of that conversation. It's now 100% state. The towns, although the state operates and runs the entire project, the towns are involved throughout the entire design phase of it. So we don't lose our voice, we don't lose our interaction in the process, so we still have a lot of input within the process. It's just that we're not having to act as a funnel for any of this, and we no longer have a municipal cost that we have to come up with for the program. So great opportunity. We're trying to take full advantage of that. So we've submitted all of these applications. I will say Peep Toad Road, that bridge has been on our capital improvement plan in year 5 of our capital improvement plan since I came on as a finance director in 2009. So, and I'm sure it was going on well before then. So it would be nice to see some of these unstick and move. An update with regards to the cell tower. So Sprint and T-Mobile merged quite some time ago. We did do the updated lease for T-Mobile. They did expand some of their antennas on their space. so they're sunsetting their Sprint space, and so they're taking their equipment for Sprint off of the pole. Does leave us with now space on the pole if we have another opportunity, but they are removing the Sprint equipment off of the tower. Dish has filed for siting council approval to get their equipment up on our tower. So, and I know Dish is really pushing and urgent on wanting to get their equipment up on the tower. So I expect that one will kick off pretty quickly once they get siting council approval. And siting council has been pretty turning over applications for cell tower equipment pretty quickly. So I would expect to see movement on that one pretty quickly. Hutchinson Precision, as you know, we had entered into a lease. They were utilizing the former Danielson, a piece of the former Danielson Borough treatment plant for some of their final treatment processes of their wastewater. As part of that lease, they needed to maintain a water line, water connection to our Little League fields. That water line comes actually from that building. That's how the concession stand and that facility gets water, is from that building. And also to provide public parking for those fields. There's not sufficient parking for the Little League events that take place if that parking space is not allowed. So unfortunately, earlier this year, we were notified by Hutchinson that they were going to be actually closing that plant and decommissioning that plant. So that plant has been officially decommissioned. But with that termination of their lease, we did negotiate for them to maintain water connection. So we are keeping that water. They are going to be maintaining that water connection and water to the facility. There's been a little bump in the road with that. We're working through that, as well as they are fencing a good portion of the site. However, the fence that's out there is going to be moved. There is going to be additional parking space available for the Little League field. So they are maintaining those two components of the lease in the termination component of this. So that's kind of been our agreement going forward. With that, though, in the long-term look of this, we are looking at potentially trying to see if there's an alternative connection to be made for the Little League fields, because ultimately, if that property sells and it turns to another business, we're kind of at the whim of a business as to whether or not they're willing to maintain a connection to to the Little League fields for water, because the water, the shut off, the meter, everything is fully integrated into that facility. It was back when the facility was Delta Rubber. They installed it because they felt that was their community investment. That was what their community outreach was way back in the day. And so, that's just what it was. So we're looking at possibilities of how we manage that on a go-forward basis. So we're not kind of in this sticky wicket, if you will, on, how do we still provide that facility with water supply. So we're working on those for an alternative source. And then one thing I didn't put in here that I thought, I actually didn't think of it until earlier today. You see some staging out here at the town hall. So we've been doing finalizing some repointing of the front of the building. So that was with remaining contingency funds from last year. We were able to activate that to complete the repointing on the south side of the building. What side of that building is this? That side of the building, right? and the rear portion at the very top. That leaves what we consider the addition. So all of the painted portion of the brick, none of that is being touched at this point in time. That is going to have to be a whole separate project. We are evaluating what that's going to take and see how we might be able to accomplish that, whether we do that in phases over time, and we look at that, kind of at that year-end phase like we've been doing with the front of the building, but just trying to chip away at this building. So that's what you're seeing. That's what that staging out there is for. That's why there's the man lift out there, because they're trying to complete the repointing. which has been kind of temporarily paused because of all of our great rain that we've gotten. So my apologies for not getting into the actual report. And I just gave you a list of some of the meetings that I've attended. Any questions?
I do have one question. Are we looking at a possibility, if it is possible, to use discharge from the wastewater treatment facility for watering the ball fields? Because that may be pretty high in nutrients, which may help the fields, help fertilize the fields at the same time.
So we are looking at if we were to do something along the lines of a river bypass. So what's coming from the wastewater treatment has to meet specific standards to discharge the river. So I wouldn't necessarily classify it as having high nutrient value at that point in time because it's been fully treated. So I don't want people to think that there is a higher nutrient value of it has to be fully treated. So it's no different than pulling water from the river, right? It would be the same as doing a river bypass. So we are exploring what potential opportunities there might be with that, as opposed to having it just, right now, the ball fields are fully connected to a Connecticut water meter, right? So it is irrigated through public water supply. So we are exploring that, but ultimately the facility, the concession stand would be connected to a Connecticut water piece. The irrigation component, we're still working through what that may look like, or if that's just going to all have to get connected to the same source. And we're working through that. And it would depend on what permitting we have to go through to get that, because it's permitting as well.
Two questions. On the bridge program, they're considered a bridge. What about the Bear Hill Road culverts? That's semi-bridge?
So we've already gotten applications in for that we had applications in for that 4 years ago. We've just gotten approval from Army Corps of Engineers, so we're going out to bid for those. So those are the box culverts. So those wouldn't meet the requirements under this program because of their lengths, as well as the road themselves, I don't believe meets the requirements under the program. But those, because of the stage that they're in, don't fall to this anyway. So we just got approval for Army Corps of Engineers. It's taken 3.5 years to get approval for Army Corps, and took us 2.5 years to get approval from DEEP. So we're moving forward. We're trying to get those out to bid so we can potentially get those under construction.
And with Hutchinson moving, they were using some of the old borough plant.
Yes.
But some of the old borough plant has a lot of issues with deteriorating infrastructure.
Yeah, so they were only using a portion of it that was usable. A good portion of that old plant has just been, it's been fenced off and has been left.
So that would fall under the sewer authority if something's going on down there, that they should be looking at that, maybe take another cursory review as to.
Yeah, we've looked at trying to get that demolished. As you know, that was actually originally part of the upgrade plan. We had looked at trying to get that in the funding to demolish that plant and then also provide parking over through there. And that was denied through that process. And at the time, and this goes back 15 years maybe, at the time it was probably a $1.5 million demolition project. Now it's probably substantially more than $1.5 million for a demolition project. But the portion that they were using, so that piece has been now capped off. They fully did clean it, so they fully cleaned it. They capped off so nothing can discharge from the building back into those tanks at this point, as a safety precaution. But again, depending on, if another manufacturer goes in there and, needs to utilize that for a purpose, it could be reactivated, though, those tanks could be reactivated, but it would depend on, what the need would be.
But only that portion, the other
Correct.
piece that we're looking at, that.
Yeah, the other piece is unusable.
That's something I guess we should just,
And that,
keeping an eye on it, but it
Yeah.
seems to be out of sight.
well, it's not out of sight on our end, and we've looked at a lot of possibilities for, funding. Ultimately, the remediation and all of that is on us. So, we have, it's a price tag that, we have to determine how we're gonna fund that and what the end use is of that space.
But that would be funding not from the town side, but that would be through.
It could,
Or either way. if
it could be through the town. I mean,
balance, but it would
you
not-
could decide, we could decide that ultimately on the town side, it makes sense to demolish that and provide additional parking or field space or whatever
Well,
for that
would be the
facility.
incentive to make the baseball field more usable.
Right,
Okay.
right. So there's a community benefit to that.
Mhm. Thank you.
I don't know, it's early on with the bridges there, would you know, are they gonna, some of those bridges are only one lane wide, would they be, have to be rebuilt at a standard 2-lane width with a, say, pedestrian access to cross?
I don't have that off the top of my head, so I have to go and talk to Dave.
Okay.
And I'm not even gonna hazard the guess on it.
All right. If they're gonna go through the expense, some of them are, I know
I-
it costs more money for a wider bridge, but,
Yeah, I would have to, we're replacing the box culvert. So I'd have to talk to Dave. Let me get back to you on it. I'm gonna
Sure.
jot a note.
all right, thank you.
Were you speaking to all the projects or just that one?
These,
No,
pro-
the 7 that was.
oh, the
submitted.
7 that are here?
Yeah.
They will have to come up to current standards.
Okay, that's what I was.
So yes, they will have to be widened, they will have to provide pedestrian access. So
Okay.
these 7 will have to meet current federal
Guidelines. for-
standards. So weight, pedestrian, width, all of that.
Perfect.
One of the challenges, not all of them, but one of the challenges that will be is the Peep Toad Road one has historic, that one it's the
Yeah.
stone arch bridge, that's
Right.
historic. So, that one will have its own separate ramifications of challenges with that one, but there are ways for them to still get that one to to get to current standards, right? Whether they maintain the historic facade and replicate the existing facade, but that's the only one. But no, these are ones, I thought you were talking about the
No.
ones that Ed was referring to. I was like, those, I don't think that there's any modification necessarily in these, yes, they will have to all come to current standard.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wood?
So I'm asking this question mainly because I had this situation come up a few weeks ago in another town. With the drought conditions and everything like that, I'm assuming our fire marshal's office is not issuing any burn permits or anything like that?
Yeah, we haven't been issuing any burn permits. And we've been discouraging, some people will, some people will like to go outside in the backyard and just have a small, backyard
Campfire.
campfire kind of thing. Even when you're far away from everything, we still really discourage those because while you don't think that you're going to catch a trees on fire or anything like that, one of the hazards that we haven't seen it so much this year, but previous drought conditions, we saw this heavily, was the fire was popping up 50 feet away because it was traveling the root systems. And so don't just assume that because you put your campfire out or your fire pit out in your backyard, that fire is not going to crop up 25 feet away, 30 feet away in the middle of your lawn. So that we've been trying to discourage that.
Yeah, I kind of figured that, and that's what I had told that gentleman, and
Right.
he didn't like my answer, but.
Right, I will
It is
say
what it
that
is.
we really haven't seen a lot of it this year.
Yeah.
People, I think, have been very cognizant of how really dry it's been. We really haven't seen a lot of it.
And that is despite the rain.
Right.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is 14A, consideration and action on a resolution to update ordinance amending Chapter 13, Article 4, loitering, littering, and public consumption of alcoholic beverages to include public consumption of cannabis prohibited. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Kurtula, seconded by Mr. Wood. Ms. Clorio, if you could just go over this, please.
Sure, so as we went over before, this section updates and prohibits the public consumption of cannabis on any public location. So this is any street, sidewalk, general public right-of-way space, parking lots, town-owned facilities, parks, any of those locations. So we mirrored the exact same language, pretty much as what we have for alcoholic beverages. So where you can't currently publicly consume alcohol, we replicated that for the cannabis because they are, both intoxifying substances for a and this is really because of generated for public safety concerns.
Thank you. It's my understanding this isn't just something that we're doing, this is something that many towns in Connecticut are doing right now.
Yes, there's been quite a number of towns that have already put in place this same language for ordinance.
Thank you.
This has gone before the ordinance subcommittee for review and was sent forward with recommendations to pass or adopt.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Ms. Murphy abstained. And motion passes. We'll now move on to the agenda. Next item up is 14B, consideration and action on a resolution to update ordinance amending Chapter 3 alcoholic beverages. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Kurtula, seconded by Ms. George. Ms. Clorio, if you could go over this, please.
So this was in reviewing our ordinances. I recognize that we had a section on the alcoholic beverages which restricted hours of sale and restricted sales on Sundays. This really mirrored at one point in time state statute, which restricted liquor stores from selling alcohol on Sundays. That state statute changed a number of years ago, which all of our businesses follow state statute. In accordance with their liquor permits. So this really strikes that whole section, and which means they, by default, go by state statute. So just kind of cleans that up, and really allows them to just follow their permit requirements by the state statute.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Again, this went past the ordinance subcommittee meeting for approval to send forward to the council.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up is 15A, new business. Consideration and action on resolution authorizing replacement of the 2010 John Deere roadside mower using the capital non-reoccurring account funds dedicated to this vehicle. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made by Mr. Wood. I believe it was seconded by Mr. Kurtula. Ms. Clorio, if you could go over this, please.
Sure, so the 2010 roadside mower, we've been experiencing pretty consistent repairs with regards to the hydraulic system on this. The elbow of where the mower deck, the mower arm goes down, has been causing significant wear, and so it's not deploying properly. The cost to replace it is almost half the cost of a new vehicle. So it just doesn't make sense. Given the year that it is, we would actually be looking to replace this in about another year and a half to 2 years anyway, given our timeline for replacement. So that's why the request is coming now. It doesn't make sense to put that much money into this vehicle when we can buy a replacement vehicle for $83,000. We have right now in our CNR $95,000 for replacement. So we have more than sufficient funds in our CNR to just replace the vehicle completely. And the vehicle that he's looking to replace it with does allow for more efficiencies within the mowing fleet. The one that he's looking for allows them to, and I'm going to probably get it wrong, and I probably should have had him come here, but if you want more real specifics on the actual technique of mowing, I'll have Matt email me, because he's a guru on mowing. But essentially, the way this new vehicle will allow them, they'll be able to do wider swaths at once, so they'll be able to lessen the amount of time they're having to actually mow, which will make it more efficient, right? Right now, we're having to go through and mow, and then we have to make several passes in order to be able to get all the way back far enough. This is going to be able to allow them to mow in a more efficient manner, so that way they're not having to go back and mow as frequently. And it'll just be more efficient, so we'll be spending less money on gas and less time with guys in the seat doing that, and allowing them to be able to get more accomplished in a season. So that's essentially the benefits of also just replacing the mower in totality, going to a slightly different style mower than what it is. The mower that they're looking at also doesn't have this elbow that just deteriorates so quickly from that, kind of resting all that weight in one location. It's a pivot arm, right? So it's a better, for longevity purposes, it has better mechanics. So the recommendation is to replace it. It did come before fiscal subcommittee, was reviewed by fiscal subcommittee, and they did recommend it unanimously to the council for adoption.
Thank you. Mr. Grandelsky.
What I'm looking at, so the mower that we're having now is a more expensive unit than the one we're buying. It was because of the CNR.
So the mower that we have right now, it was a larger mower.
Oh, okay.
It was a larger mower.
Okay, it's different.
And so he's moving to it's a slightly smaller, but it's a more efficient, and it's more in line with the style roads that we have and the mowing that we need to accomplish.
Because it seems that the biggest thing on them, I saw him today driving back. I mean, when you're at the far end of town, there's a lot of road miles just driving the thing, not mowing.
Right.
It seems like there's more miles that way than, because to get where you have to go, it's, but you can't keep dragging it every time because you never get to the extreme end of town.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's good. We're getting a more efficient machine and lesser cost, and the money can go back into support other purchases. It's good.
I was just curious, I just thought of this, what do they do with the old mower? Do they sell it, auction it, private sale? or-
We trade it in.
Trade it in? okay.
Yeah, so we always look at those. Whenever we're looking at getting rid of a vehicle, we look to see whether or not it makes sense for us to either use it as part of a trade-in to lower, obviously, our outright purchase cost, or if we don't trade it in, then it always has to go to public auction. So we typically have used an auction site, a website for public auction in order to get rid of equipment. So those are the two mechanisms for us to dispose of vehicles. But I believe that we're trading this one in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy.
Just another procedural thing, I always have those questions. So each each vehicle has its own CNR, is that how it is?
Yeah, so in our CNR fund, we designate the amount that goes in each year by vehicle, by VIN number. Yep.
What are you giving us for trade-in?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I will have to, I can get that to you. I'll have Matt email it to me.
Any other questions, comments? As Ms. Calorio said, this did come before fiscal subcommittee, and we did recommend for approval by the full council. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Whitehead abstained. Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 15B, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute an MOU with the Town Hall Union regarding salary adjustments for fiscal year 2022 through 2023. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
Where's the MOU?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Ms. George, seconded by Mr. Wood. Ms. Gloria, if you could go over this, please.
Sure, so the town hall unit, we negotiated their union contract 2 years ago. They agreed for, it's a 3-year contract. They're currently in year 2 of that contract. We, at the time, agreed to 2.25% increases each year for the 3 years. And at the time, when we negotiated that, the other 2 units were at 2%. And we agreed to the additional 0.25% for them because for that unit, there is a significant market gap between what we're paying employees and what we're seeing on the market for these employees, and we're trying to start to close that gap. The current year, the past year happened, and inflation has been pretty significant. Our other 2 units, because of inflation, have settled at substantially higher numbers. Our UPSU unit settled at 3%, and our DPW union settled at 2.5%. Our non-unions, you guys approved a 2.5% for them as well. I was not comfortable leaving our town hall unit at 2.25% because I feel like by doing that, all we're doing is just worsening the gap. And so I approached the personnel subcommittee about being authorized to forego, for resources purposes, because I know that we budgeted for 2.25% for the town hall unit, foregoing any potential wage increase for myself and dedicating those resources to the town hall unit to give them an increase up to 2.75%. So giving them the additional 0.5%. It's not a lot of money, but I think it goes a long way in helping them achieve some movement towards not losing as much ground in that gap, right? And so that's my request. So I want everyone to know that the unit did not come to me and ask for this at all. I actually approached the personnel subcommittee first. The unit didn't even know that I had asked about this. I approached the personnel subcommittee at this because I really didn't feel comfortable with leaving them at the 2.25% and allowing that market gap to continue to grow. Given the circumstances that we're in, I know that when we have positions that open up in that unit, I struggle to fill them at the current wage rates that they're at. It's just very challenging. So I didn't want to leave them there. So that was my request, and so I brought it to the personnel subcommittee. They agreed for me to pursue that conversation with the union. Obviously, the union is very appreciative of this. They, beyond appreciative. Appreciative isn't the word to use, and I don't have a better word to use for that. But they are very appreciative for even the consideration of this. So I put this before you. The Personnel Subcommittee did review and recommend it to the council for approval.
Thank you. Now, one question I have is, this increase, based off what your salary, your current salary is, what percentage, the amount of money we're increasing them total, compared to what percentage of your salary that would be?
What is that, 36? That percentage-wise would be, translated to a percentage of my salary is 2.4%.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Sorry, Mary, just had another procedural question. So you do a comparative analysis with the unions or with the towns around you?
Towns. So I take, so whenever I look at wages for positions, I always do a comparison with similarly sized towns across the state, across Connecticut, and then where it's applicable to within corporate as well. So like administrative assistants, right? Because those are also, well, those translate fairly easily between town versus corporate. So I also look within more of our market directly for those as well. But I look for town specific. I look within our similarly situated communities.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
I think I said this during personnel sub, and I'll say it again, it's always a good thing to see a leader who's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that people are taken care of. And Mary, thank you for what you're doing for our employees here and trying to help them out.
Thank you.
I completely agree with what Mr. Wood said. Shouldn't have been as shocked, considering getting to know you over the years like I have, but for someone to come forward willing to put others ahead of themselves, it isn't something you hear about a lot, and it really stood out to me.
I concur. It definitely just shows your leadership skills and how much your team really means to you, and that's why they all love working for you, so I applaud you.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 15C, consideration and action on a resolution to set the date of October 11, 2022 for a public hearing on a proposal to authorize the town manager to expend $100,000 of American Rescue Act funding for the Wyndham 4H Dam repair project. Can I get a motion to set this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Grandelski, seconded by Ms. George. Mr. Cottulli, you had a question?
No, I'm sorry, I thought you skipped it, so for some reason I don't have that in my packet.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we have everything about the 4-H camp. We don't have the actual resolution before us.
I'm
I'd hate
very
to-
sorry.
Yeah, I'd hate to hold up that, too. I assume we could still vote on that.
Now, is that
You
in
can still-
the agenda that was posted on the website?
I don't know without checking the website, but you could still act on it because it was listed on your agenda item here, on the agenda itself. And the language is going to be the same, the date is the same. It's just the project name and the amount is changed from the resolution. So I will make sure that a corrected one is published, but you can act on it tonight because it is listed on your agenda. My apologies for that. I don't know how I missed that.
So we did have a motion and a second on this. If you could just go over this briefly, I know you just touched on it some.
Sure.
This is just setting the public hearing for this. This isn't making the approval.
Correct. So this is setting the public hearing, so the Wyndham 4-H submitted an application for the use of American Rescue Act funds. Their application submission was in the amount of $50,000, and this was for dam repairs. They've had significant deterioration of their dam, the main ponding area for their facility. They gave a presentation to the town council in beginning of May, and the council, it then came to the fiscal subcommittee in August for them to re-review after receiving the additional information with regards to what the project was and the impacts. The fiscal subcommittee evaluated that additional information and actually made a recommendation to increase that dollar value from $50,000 to $100,000, and have recommended the town council to set a public hearing to fund $100,000 of the American Rescue Act funding to the Wyndham 4-H dam repair project.
Thank you. I actually have the resolution in front of me. I can actually read the resolution. That way everyone's aware of it before you vote on it. So, resolution to set the date of October 11th, 2022 for a public hearing on the proposal to authorize the town manager to expend $100,000 of American Rescue Act funding for the Wyndham 4-H dam repair project. Be it resolved by the town council of the town of Killenly that the following resolution be set down for a public hearing on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the town meeting room of the Killenly Town Hall, 172 Main Street, Killenly, Connecticut. Resolution to authorize the town manager to expend $100,000 of American Rescue Act funding for the Wyndham 4-H dam repair project. Be it resolved the town council of the town of Killenly that the town manager is herein authorized to expend funds under the American Rescue Plan Act funding in the amount of $100,000 for the Wyndham 4-H dam repair project. So that is the wording of the resolution. And I believe, Mr. Grandowski, you had something.
Yeah, I think this is a very worthwhile expenditure. You know, they have a hard time over there, and when they made the presentation, how many of our residents, the kids, take part in it, I think it's nice that we can make this funding available.
One thing I thought of during the fiscal subcommittee, when we made the recommendation to go from the $50,000 to $100,000, is looking at some of the other requests for the ARPA money. This is something that isn't just a 1 year, 2 year thing. This is something that will have an impact on kids on the camp itself for years, and kids for many more years to come after that. That's why I was in full support to raise the amount up to the $100,000.
I'd like to add too, I think it's important when we consider how many kids, not just Killenly, that this camp serves. It's 41 towns, and I hope that by Killenly stepping up and putting in this much funding, other towns will, take the step and do the same thing and get this fully funded for them.
I agree.
I think what would help a lot of people and taxpayers is if you had a plan and a budget for that $100,000, what you intend on using it for, what it's going to be, what's your main plan? Is it going to be, engineering? This is going to go to this? Is that, you know what I mean? Have it spelled out clearly where the money's going, because I know that taxpayers and I think it's a great thing and it's an awesome project, but being transparent about where that money goes to and where it's earmarked for would be definitely a good idea.
One thing I will say is during the fiscal subcommittee meeting, they did bring a lot of that information forward.
That would help if we had.
Okay. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, shared this during fiscal sub, and I'll share it again there. You know, at first, when this project first came to us, I was kind of the mindset of I'd like to see ARPA funds stay with Killingly. But after the presentation that you guys have done a phenomenal job with, by the way, and learning the amount of scholarships you've given over the years to Killingly students, this is just probably a drop in the bucket compared to what you've done for our residents here. And so I'm more than happy to support this.
Thank you.
I will say that that detail was included in their application that you have, or should have, in your application books. But I will re-include it with it. Well, the 100,000, right. Okay. I'll make sure that we have updated ones to you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I also said that at the fiscal subcommittee meeting that with the big concern for children's health and mental health, getting them out unwired in nature, playing, that's the best thing for them.
I fully agree. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 15D, consideration and action on a resolution to set the date of October 11th, 2022 for a public hearing on the proposal to authorize the town manager to expend $200,500 of American Rescue Act funding for the fire department life, safety, and communication upgrade. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Grandelsky. Do I have a second? I believe Ms. Murphy seconded it. Ms. Caloria, if you could go over this, please.
Sure. So this application was submitted on behalf of all of the fire departments. So originally, we received, during the original round of applications, an application from just Attawagan with regards to a singular communications upgrade. After we went through that, we realized that that application needed to be reevaluated. So Attawagan was amenable to looking at it on a more broad townwide basis and including all of the fire departments. The fire marshal and myself met with all the fire chiefs and reviewed what made sense for them in this application. And so the application is for 3 of the remote mobile units. So these are units that are cross-agency units. So these speak across agencies and across, really across state lines as well, right? So they're a higher level radio band, and each department will also receive one Lucas compression system. The this request is $200,500, which is just a little bit less than what the original application that was submitted by Attawagan. Attawagan's original application was just over $201,000, so this is just a little bit less than that. But it provides every department with 3 of those mobile units. Those will be installed in the trucks. The individual fire departments are responsible for the actual installation. So we are only purchasing the equipment. They have to install the actual radios. Each fire department utilizes different radio installers for their vehicles, so we don't want to get into, having a different installer working on a vehicle that another operator uses. So we're going to have them contract with their own installer to install them, and they will pay for the actual installations. All of the fire departments are supportive of that, of paying for that installation, and that is their kind of skin in the game, if you will, on this one. It is their portion of that installation. They are very appreciative of this contribution, this investment in them. Many of them wouldn't necessarily be able to invest in this type of equipment, not without significant mill rate increases, which is just, tax increases to our residents. So they were very appreciative of being able to be incorporated in that for consideration. So, and you saw that we had two submitted the public comment supporting the request. And again, this is just for setting the public hearing. This isn't for approval.
Thank you.
For the Lucas Tools, the quote said it's only good for 30 days, and the quote was in July. I heard that the Lucas Tool prices could possibly increase in October, some percentage, maybe, maybe not. But if they did increase, should we add more to cover the increase of the?
We could. Randy's been having pretty regular conversations with the vendor. We don't know exactly what that
an increase
would
could be if it
potentially
did.
be. And, whether that's a conversation of, we go back to the fire departments and say, can you cover the, remaining bit, or we come back to the council. I'm not sure what that looks like. We don't have an exact
Dollar amount.
dollar number.
To know.
Right.
I do have one question. If this goes forward and does get approved and the price does increase, would we have to have another public hearing if there was an increase? Because that would just be an incremental amount.
Correct.
Thank you.
So if this was approved for this dollar amount at the public hearing, or the October 11th meeting.
The project is
they could-
approved.
So we could add additional money to cover the.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there more than one vendor, or is it just one vendor? Are we putting that to bid, or?
I don't know that there's too many vendors on the Lucas, and I would have to go back and talk to Randy about it. He's been the main point person on evaluating all of that, and he's very cost conscious. So if he can find another vendor to beat up for a price, he'll do it.
I mean, if you had three comparable ones, I mean.
I don't know that there is three.
No.
To be completely honest, I don't think there are three.
Okay.
This is specialized equipment.
I'll speak to this one, actually. Kind of
you.
as a subject matter expert on this one. So the Lucas device is made by Physio Control, which is actually owned by Stryker now. So it is a specific proprietary device to that company. So the price that's there is the price that's there.
Right.
Company, that's it.
That's it.
One company that supplies it, that's it.
Throughout the whole country, one company.
Yep.
Yep.
There's different variations of the same type of device, but it depends on the company. And just recently, KB Ambulance had a demonstration on a different style compression device, and they had that demonstration, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with that one.
Right.
So with this, the Lucas devices are legitimately just made by Stryker.
And I believe that, so the Lucas tools are the ones that everyone is most familiar with. And it's more widely utilized. So they have the highest rating. Yeah. No, normally,
Protocol
Yeah.
would be to.
bid it out.
That's
Yes.
the question.
Agreed.
Just
Yep.
like spending the money, I mean.
Yep. Yeah, no, I was pretty positive, but I didn't want to come right out and say that it was a sole source, but I didn't have it trapped in my head. That's why I was looking at Ray. I was looking for a facial expression.
I'm asking what it actually is. That's a.
It's an intense piece of machinery.
It is.
Ms. Murphy?
So does this include the borough fire departments too, or is that they're doing their own?
No, this does include the Danielson Borough, because, so the Danielson Borough, the Danielson Borough Fire Department did submit for communications and requests to the borough council for communications. However, the borough council funded the Brickyard program for the town, and so we felt that it was inappropriate for us to exclude them from this application, because the borough did fund the town's application for Brickyard, for part of the Brickyard project. So we felt that it was appropriate for us to, we didn't want to exclude a fire department for communications, and they did not have an application in for a Lucas tool, but we felt that it was appropriate for all of them to be included in that.
Thank you. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on the agenda to item 15E, consideration and action on a resolution to introduce and set the date of October 11, 2022 for a public hearing on proposed ordinance to authorize acceptance from David and Josephine Tripodi of a permanent drainage easement and rights to drain for drainage improvements at 249 Bailey Hill Road. Can I get a motion to set this public hearing?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Colorio, if you could go over this.
Sure. So, so this is really, I would say, formalizing an existing drainage easement that drainage area that we're currently draining on right now. We want to do some minor drainage improvement to it. So we want to formalize that. Anytime we want to clean up a drainage area and we identify that we are currently draining and there's no easement there, we want to formalize that drainage easement. So we've been in communications with the property owners. They're more than willing to convey that drainage easement to us. The value of that drainage easement is $391.48. So it well below the $5,000 threshold by charter, so the town council can take action on that. It just requires a public hearing. So this would be setting the public hearing for next month, for you to hold that public hearing and then potentially take action on the town acquiring that drainage easement.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to item 15F, consideration and action on a resolution to introduce and set the date of October 11, 2022 for a public hearing on a proposed ordinance to authorize acceptance from Tammy Rainville and Robert Labonte of a permanent drainage easement and rights to drain for drainage improvements at 146 Pineville Road. Can I get a motion to set this public hearing date?
I'll make that motion. Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Mr. Wood. Ms. Colorio, if you could go over this one.
Sure. So, so this this current drainage easement doesn't necessarily, drainage area doesn't exactly exist right now. We're going to be creating a more directed drainage for this area. This map that you received, it's very noisy because it's actually a site map. They're looking at building a house on this property, so that's why you received such a noisy map on this one. But the actual drainage component is quite small. We're looking at installing 2 catch basins with just a small riprap area for the discharge area, just to point the water in a more suitable location. The actual value of this drainage easement, because it is actually quite small, is $25.70, so it's actually quite small. But, so well below the 5,000. And again, as we're getting ready to do these, we want to make sure that we're getting the easements done and put in place right from the very get-go. So good timing on this one with regards to the site plan that's taking place. They're in the process of this site plan right now, so it's well-timed for their development of this site as well. So it's all in very good timing. And this would be setting the public hearing for this drainage easement.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up is council member reports and comments. Mr. Grandowski, would you like to start?
Okay.
I didn't make the meetings, conservation didn't have a quorum, and the replacement meeting, I wasn't able to attend.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy.
I went to the sewer commission meeting. I think they said they were fit, and correct me, Mary, on any of this. For some reason, I always still forget that I have to do this report. I go to the liaison and I give them my report, the things that when they come here, I'm like, oh. But I think they said Buck Street is finishing up. Jen's been working on the new budget with the new staffing and the new chemicals and everything, and that's going well. She doesn't foresee any problems. Staff is all hired, I think, except for the PM. They're in permit. They look good. The report looked beautiful. They did buy those 2 pumps for the pump station, right? $44,000, I think. And they had some generator issues. The generator company that offered them a generator that was way too big and way too much money with lead time like 6 months. So they're going to buy a smaller one temporary and keep working on that, I think. Then I did Ag Commission, and there was a big, long discussion about farming and whether to farm with till and whether to use chemicals or not to use chemicals. The new members are very excited, and we talked a lot about a compost project, and it's just good to see the new blood. Everybody's like really excited, so thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
We discussed everything that happened at Personnel and Fiscal.
Thank you. Mr. Cottula.
Permanent Building Committee had a walkthrough of KMS, the area that's under construction, to show us how they put up barrier walls to prevent any infiltration to the occupied space and what the occupied space looks like. So we were supposed to have a meeting this Wednesday. That's canceled. There'll be probably a meeting or 2 by the end of the month to get caught up stuff that's got a timeline to get it in.
All right. Thank you. As Mr. Wood indicated, everything from Fiscal Subcommittee was already discussed. The Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission is still unable to hold a meeting due to lack of members for a quorum. And Ms. George.
I've been busy. Okay, so the special meeting, as Ed mentioned, the Conservation Commission, we met on August 31st. They discussed Celebrate Killingly. That was a big success. I don't think it was as busy as last year, but the turnout was pretty good for kicking off a new event. We talked about Walktober. Litchfield Avenue is going to be the location, and that's going to be the last week in October, the first week in November. There's more information on that on the website. Lowe's has stepped up, and they are going to make the Litchfield Avenue Trail their project. So they're going to be working with Jean from the Conservation Commission. Jean will be working with Lowe's and the town to make that project happen. At Chase, well, let me see. Yeah, so at Chase and Quanduck, I believe, the Young Marines volunteered, and they marked the trails with Allison. And they talked about the bus tours that Donna does are very, very successful. So they came up with a new idea. They're talking about doing a farm foliage tour. So they discussed it, and now it'll be going over to the Ag Commission for further details. Stay tuned. And let me see. I believe that's it on conservation. Then I had my first meeting with the Eastern Regional Tourism District. Wow, is that interesting? Oh, I shut it off? Sorry. So the next one, I had my first meeting with the Eastern Regional Tourism District. Very interesting, very exciting things happening there. So they are our region, as every other. Right now, there's a thing with the name change. Some people want to change it to match the rest of the state, so by location. But right now, it's known as Mystic Country and has been for years. If you go on the website, visitconnecticut.org, all of this region is featured under Mystic Country. my goal, and I've already put out some information on the town council, is to get Killingly businesses and services up on that website. So I am encouraging people to contact me so I can get your business up there and really push. And for surrounding towns, we need more support. So I'm kind of pushing people to contact me to become a representative for your town. So that's that. NECOG was very busy. So under transit, ridership has been increasing slightly month to month, and there are free fares until December 1st right now. The Plainfield pilot program peaked in June, and now the state is considering whether they're going to continue funding it after October, so stay tuned. Animal services, unfortunately, there have been more investigations and seizures, I think probably economically related for their getting a lot of farm animals. And the courts are now waiving holding fees for those due to hardship. So that's putting a stress on the finances for NECOG. Crumbling foundations, they have now, over the past few years, they're up to getting 591 families back in their homes after the restorations, and now they're working on condominiums across the state. And there are quite a few grant programs they're working on right now. There's one that sounds pretty interesting. It's called TRIP, Transportation Rural Improvement Grant, and that's targeted specifically to improve infrastructures in rural and small towns. And all this stuff is on their website, so you can take a look. I attended the first CEA negotiations for the teachers' contracts. So we presented both sides. The next one is the end of September, and tomorrow night is the first Board of Ed meeting for the year. Yay. And that's all I have.
That's all?
That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Wakefield?
I had vehicle issues last week, so I did miss the economic development. Wasn't expected, but I did attend a couple of the ribbon cuttings recently, Honey Goods on Academy Street and the Taylor Studios, which is over in the Jolly Commons. I'm planning on going to the one on Thursday. I actually have several family members that are very excited about that one and would like to try out some of the wares from that particular ribbon cutting. But Parks and Rec will meet, the Rec Commission meets later this month, and of course they had to celebrate Killingly. Their fall program guide is out. They do most of their registrations, almost everything's online. And I know that I am doing a CPR first aid course through them, teaching, it's just a bystander CPR first aid course through it's an American Heart Association course. That's going to be in November, so people can sign up for that, along with all their other fitness classes, which are well attended. That's one thing that we can really hang our hats on is our rec department does a fabulous job of keeping everybody from toddlers to seniors active and busy and involved. And that's just makes for a just healthier community altogether. So, and I am also presently working with the town. There's about 26 town employees that are interested in learning bystander CPR. So I'll be doing that probably in the month of October with them.
Thank you. Ms. Barclay?
From the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was a public hearing that was for 7:30 Hartford Pike, Dayville Four Corners, the space where the Halloween store is. They would like to permanently have a tenant there, so the public hearing was closed, and it was approved for a space for liquor, beer and wine when a license becomes available. New business, 1076 North Main Street, Nutmeg Killingley JV LLC has applied for a cannabis retail establishment license, and I believe that's the old bank building that's unoccupied. And 583 Warwigan Road, Ernest Jolly and Sons, for the gravel operation. They would like a 3-year extension. That was approved. 520 Bailey Hill Road, the Building America LLC, where they have a subdivision plan. They asked for a 5-year extension. They can have one more 5-year extension. It's been there for years, but nothing's been built there. And American Storage Centers LLC, 551 Westcott Road, asked for a 60-day extension, which was approved. And for the Housing Authority meeting, they finally met in August. The previous meeting was in May. So they'll be opening the waiting list. It's open for 5 working days. And they currently have 200 applicants. They update it once a year to see if people have moved out of town or are still interested. The gutter project was finally completed with a certificate of completion. The sewer backup problem was resolved by taking a couple of maple trees down, and new lines and pipes were put in, and the corner of Maple and North Street. The CHFA asked that they raise the rent, so the base rent will go to $250 from $220. And it's also should be 30% of somebody's income, and the apartments are 450 to 500 square feet. Access Agency has been having a mobile food pantry at Maple Courts and Birchwood Terrace. They're going to sell their 1999 truck and replace it with a new Chevy 2022 Chevy truck. And Roxanne Pappas, a longtime member, will be resigning. She recently turned 90. And they did find staffing for the weekends to prepare and serve food. And Shelter Plus Care is assisting with apartments for people who need services. And that is it.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, we have nothing for executive session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Woods, seconded by Mr. Grandelsky. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? This meeting is adjourned.